Call to order the meeting of January 15th, special board meeting. Will you please rise for this Pledge of Allegiance? All ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Yes. Esperanza, would you please come up and introduce yourself for Spanish translation?
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Esperanza Villegas y estoy aquí para traducir. Si alguno de ustedes necesita ayuda, me puede encontrar en la parte trasera de esta sala. Gracias.
Gracias. Headsets for the hearing impaired are available as noted on the screen. Please indicate if you need a headset. Public comments. Do we have any public comments?
We do have one public comment from Mr. Kenneth Locke.
My name is Kenneth Locke. I don't know if you've seen me out in front of the museum, but I have a sign that says free reality check. And I just spoke before the city council today and brought this before them. I'm going to try to promote reality within the community, within education. I think it'd be good for the kids to get grounded so that they can actually build a life relative to reality. Right now, in relation to money, our dollar, it does not have anything that is grounded to. And a relationship relative to money, I'm sorry to say it's going to end up being completely delusional. And I think we can already see it at work. It's dividing this community. And also what I also see is the people who have been given position in this community. It's kind of like a false heirship kind of thing, and it's important that we honor people for the right reasons kind of situation. But I'm hoping just to introduce this. I'd introduce it to the city, and also I'm introducing it to you in relation to like tennis. Right now, your PE is promoting a delusional relationship with athletics. I can understand it through tennis, based on the fact that it's one-arm competition. It limits when you bring these kids into a relationship with that. It will limit their ability to become intelligent. And that's ultimately what I'm bringing to the table, is the means for understanding tennis in relation to an ambidextrous relationship, non-competitive, and then we can understand the connection between tennis and then, say, yoga, surfing. We can understand athletics in relation to them being interdisciplinary. Right now, its competition is actually promoting delusional behavior, and I think it's on the increase. I'll be speaking I'm going to communicate with the mental health people in town and see if I can get them on
30
board.
seconds.
And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. All right, we'll go on to our conference agenda. We don't have any more public comments. B1, negotiation procedures for unrepresented management and confidential employees. This is about the procedures.
This is about our procedures for working with management and confidential employees who are unrepresented employees. There is no union per se for that group, and we have Brown Act requirements, we have Rada laws, and we've asked Craig Price to step in and lead us through a little of the background on this and advise us so that he can also answer our questions. This particular presentation was occasioned by our last discussion about management and confidential employees. I speak with managers and confidential employees about salary and about health and welfare issues. In our last discussion, they were going to prioritize what they thought were their highest interests. And in this last event, I talked to someone who acted as a representative to tell me what those priorities were. So I've taken that to Mr. Price. I think he understands my question about that. And if I need to operate differently, I certainly will. Mr. Price?
Okay, in order to target in my remarks and make sure that I'm responding to precisely what the questions are, I thought I would put together a little memo that Dave has put up on the screen that hopefully you can see going along with the discussion. And I'm glad to have the opportunity to respond to your inquiry, Dr. Sarvis, because it's not the first time that it's come up, and it's not a matter of complete clarity by any means. So I welcome the opportunity to make my brief remarks about this and then to answer any particular questions that any of the board members may have with respect to the opinion that I expressed. But my understanding from our discussion, Dr. Sarvis, is that there are really three parts to the question, and that is whether or not it's appropriate for there to be salary and benefit discussions with management and confidential employees under the Rada Act. Two, if so, whether those discussions can be held with representatives of a management and confidential employees organization separate and apart from dealing with the individual employees on a separate basis. And then third and last, assuming that it's appropriate to have discussions with management and confidential employees and to do it through a representative of their organization, then the question remains, can such discussions be brought into a closed session of the board lawfully under the provisions of the Brown Act for purposes of allowing the agency's designated negotiator or representative to meet with the board to confer and to get direction for him or her to take back in further discussion. So I've tried in a very brief way to answer those questions. My answer is yes to all three of the questions. And I will briefly explain what the basis of that is. We have two different laws that are that come to bear on this situation. One is the so-called Rada Act. Stand to the mic. One is the so-called Rada Act, which is found in the Government Code, and it sets forth the laws that regulate collective bargaining for school district employees. In the Rada Act, it is provided that school district employees generally have certain collective bargaining type rights. And those rights are manifested in the rules and the regulations that you, of course, follow when you are bargaining with the two unions, for the classified and for the certificated employees. The process, unlike in the private sector and in some public sectors, is not specifically referred to as collective bargaining, though. There's another term of art that's used, and that's called meeting and negotiating. Meeting and negotiating is defined under the Rada Act in the Government Code, and it includes the same type of language that really covers collective bargaining and involves dealing with an exclusive representative of the employees. In the case of certificated and classified employees, of course, that's the two unions. I think it's potentially likely that some confusion can come into the equation by virtue of the fact that the Rada Act states that in no case shall an organization meet and that is a organization of unrepresented management and confidential employees. In no case shall such an organization meet and negotiate with the public school employer. It's very easy to take that to mean that there can't be negotiations. My interpretation that I think is certainly consistent with what the practice is statewide is that the prohibition there is for meeting and negotiating, in other words, collective bargaining, and having that association of management and confidential employees be the exclusive representative of those employees. That is precluded. However, the same section of the Rada Act, which is right here where I'm showing, specifically give to the management and confidential employees the right to, we have to go to the, push that up a little bit. Where I'm pointing here is the excerpt from the government code that specifically gives to management and confidential employees the right to either represent himself or herself or belong to an employee organization whose membership is composed entirely of similarly situated employees. So it's important to recognize that the Rada Act specifically gives to management and confidential employees the right to organize and to have an organization and to have spokespersons for that organization. The requirements, however, that are imposed on management or the agency itself to deal with that organization is very different than the case with your classified and certificated employees. It is at the prerogative of the employer as to whether and under what circumstances you choose to have discussions with that group and or individual members of that group concerning salaries and benefits. You're not required to. You're not allowed to be too deferential, meaning to engage in collective bargaining and treat such organization as though they were an exclusive representative of those employees. But short of that, you have the prerogative to enter into discussions regarding salary and benefit for those employees. And of course, most school districts do that, especially the larger organizations. I have pulled down, for example, from the web, a copy of a very lengthy memorandum of understanding that is in place in the San Diego City Schools covering management, supervisory, and confidential employees that goes well beyond the what I've seen in terms of the documentation that relates to our management and confidential employees. A corollary question, or question number 2 that I have up here is, well, given that there are or is the ability to have discussions concerning salary and benefits with management and confidential employees, does that have to be with the individuals themselves, or can it be through the organization? And my answer to that question is that it can be through the organization. Certainly there's no prohibition that is specified in any of the applicable laws in either the Rada Act or the government code that would restrict the ability of such an organization to not be able to have discussions if management so chooses directly as opposed to meeting with individual employees. And of course, in the larger school districts, and I include Santa Barbara in that, it would be impractical and largely impossible to have individual discussions with all of the management and confidential employees in San Diego, LA, Fresno, down to Santa Barbara and beyond. I did see, because I wanted to look and see what some of the other opinions were, I looked at the website of the First Amendment Coalition, and I saw that they had some language there that talked about discussions being allowed on an individual basis. And I thought, well, what is the possible source of that? And I couldn't find it. There is no indication in any statute of any such limitation. In this area, there are no Attorney General opinions. There are no case law precedents in terms of courts of appeal, et cetera. So it's a judgment call based on interpretation of the applicable statutes. Certainly, with some light being shed based upon the fact that school districts throughout this state have been engaging in similar practices for a great many years, and there's never been a challenge that I know of. The last question that I've attempted to answer is whether the agency or the school district's designated representative can come in and meet with the board in closed session in similar fashion to the procedure that you follow in dealing with both of the unions, and discuss with the board input that the representative has received from the management organization, and to obtain direction from the board to go back and have further discussions with the organization. Actually, if you could turn the page, please, Dave. The Brown Act specifically, where are we here? The Brown Act actually makes specific reference to having there be discussions regarding salaries and benefits with both represented and unrepresented employees, and also actually contains a differentiation in terms of the scope of what can be discussed as between represented and unrepresented employees. For represented employees, it goes somewhat beyond merely salaries and benefits, and allows discussion for anything within the scope of bargaining. It limits the discussions in closed session to those things pertaining to salaries and benefits for unrepresented employees. I would make one footnote so that you will know that when it comes to reaching decisions concerning management and confidential employees, that a final decision under the Brown Act cannot occur in closed session. That has to come out, and that has to be dealt with and voted upon in open session. And it's a little bit different from the laws that pertain in the Brown Act to the other two unions. As sort of a fallback, having looked at this some months ago and having been re-asked the question by Dr. Sarvis, I called up Bruce Barsuk, who I think you all know from Liebert Cassidy, who's been involved for a number of years in the district's labor negotiations, and asked him, and he said there's never been a challenge to this practice. It doesn't appear to be even a close question as far as he's concerned, and it is essentially a uniform practice among school agencies throughout the state of California. So, of course, he has a closer handle on what's going on up and down the state than I do, being somewhat parochial in my practice. So I felt that that was useful information to share with the board as well. So those are really my comments, and I'm happy to attempt to answer any questions that any of you may have.
Can I just ask, in conclusion, would you say then that what we've been doing is in accordance to the law? Is that that's
my understanding is that what you've been doing is in accordance with the law. Ordinarily, of course, I'm not in there in closed session with you. But based on the input I received from Dr. Sarvis relative to this inquiry, and in an earlier instance as well, that is my understanding. Yes.
Thank you. Is there any questions?
Just have to comment, it's very interesting in the Brown Act that it sets down rules for conversations about the representation of unrepresented people. But that is not half as opaque as what you had up there at the bottom of that paragraph from the Rada Act. any common sense reading of that would say it's exactly the opposite of what you said, but I guess you don't read statutes by common sense.
I'd be out of a job if that were the case, Dr. Noel. And I grant you, in really looking around, I found it's the Kramer book on school law, and I opened that, and I could see that the authors of that publication took the actual language in the statute, meeting and negotiating, to mean negotiating, and I think they drew an erroneous conclusion. So there are some, people out there that, that are looking at it differently. But I think while that's understandable, the law is about as clear as it can be that the type of process that has been in place here for having discussions with management and confidential employees is valid and proper.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I'll make the record clear. I'm the one that stumbled onto the Rada Act and read that and said, my God, what have we been doing? And raised the question, and Dr. Sarvis wisely took it to you. And it's helpful, whatever it says, as long as we're behaving in a way that we're not going to get sued over, that satisfies me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Since we have 5 minutes, I'm going to say we're going to take a 5-minute break so we can start just at the right time. So, 5 minutes. Thank you for being here this evening. It's just 6 o'clock and we're on to the main event. The board discussion of gang intervention and prevention strategies in the Santa Barbara School District.
Well, the primary purpose for our meeting tonight was to discuss gang intervention and prevention. I would like to set the context about student safety as to the things that we had been doing before the stabbing that occurred last March, the things we did within an hour of the stabbing, the things we did immediately after for the spring of this last year, the things we've been doing this fall, and where we are now. You have in your agenda packet a memo from Paul Turnbull about some of the primary recommendations, and I will then go to Paul Turnbull, our Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Education, have him address those. You also have a memo from Michael Gonzalez on ELAC, or excuse me, DLAC, consideration of these items, as well as the last memo from Michael Gonzalez on issues and considerations regarding gang violence and what the district has done and can be doing in the future. So this is really an extension of that discussion. Let me speak to student safety, though. This district has a strong history of building a culture of safe schools. And I have lists and lists of things that we've been doing, some things that I didn't even know about. And I won't go over those entire lists, but I do need to say that we have the very traditional effort of the administrative teams and campus supervisors in working regularly on student safety. We have also re-examined conduct codes because every staff member on every campus needs to share the responsibility for monitoring and action. This board has also reviewed and adopted revisions to board policies and administrative regulations on the comprehensive safety plan, on student conduct, student dress code, gangs, discipline, suspension and expulsion due process, and non-discrimination harassment policy, including complaint procedures. We communicate our expectations to families to gain their support in this process. We communicate with parents in English and Spanish regarding school expectations and zero tolerance for inappropriate behavior. Behavior guidelines are provided in student handbooks and reviewed in classrooms. 3 years ago, Board President Nancy Harder suggested that since we were seeing an increase in gang activity, and we were seeing this through the expulsion process, as we were seeing an increase in gang activity in this community, that we invite the police department to make a presentation to this board. At that time, Sergeant Ralph Molina came to the board and talked to us about gangs and increased activities across the community. And we took what he had to say to heart. In fact, we took that as an opportunity to reestablish our zero tolerance policies with students and parents, redoubling our efforts on campuses, making sure that it was clear that gang dress, gang symbols, gang behavior was not to be tolerated on our campuses. And I must say that our sites have been very successful, and we've had relatively few incidents on our campuses. Of course, any incidents are too many in many of these areas, whether it's drug use, whether it's having a knife at school. But we've been very successful with a group of students who are in close proximity to each other on a regular basis. Our schools are relatively gang neutral. Gang supervision. This last year, a year ago, we increased salaries for campus supervisors. We were having difficult time at that point in time finding good, qualified campus supervisors, and we identified trainings for campus supervisors. We have safe school committees at each school site. We have incident response teams at each school site. We have provided staff in service on gang awareness education, the reduction of truancy rates, diversity, and cultural sensitivity. Secondary assistant principals and district staff have been attending monthly gang task force meetings for more than a decade. So this has been going on for 10 years. The gang task force has been a valuable tool for intra-district and inter-district communication between districts, law enforcement, and communication. We have school resource officers who provide a regular positive presence on our campuses. We have a partnership with Santa Barbara Parks and Recreation Department in the after-school programs at elementary and junior high campuses, and we're thankful to the city for providing those. We provide the space, they provide the activities. We have anti-bullying programs, character programs, conflict resolution, peer mediation, beyond tolerance, just communities, too good for drugs in K-8, and many examples of school-based activities to inform parents about gang issues, bringing students together, and or engaging at-risk students. Within 1 hour of the stabbing in March of 2007, we met with all of the secondary principals. We stopped upcoming minimum days. We reestablished non-tolerance of gang dress, gang symbols, gang behavior. We authorized dog sweeps on an incident basis. We planned meetings with law enforcement. We followed through with those meetings. We discovered a number of things about that incident that have helped us to this day. We eliminated minimum days with the exception of the state-required end-of-semester minimum days for this year. Classroom and after-school programs in the district were designed to promote cross-town interactions between students. We stepped up efforts to work with several community agencies and nonprofits to expand daily after-school programs, and we gladly worked with other agencies to increase job opportunities. This fall was a time when, actually last spring and into this fall, when a number of organizations had ideas about things that they could do to help. In April and May of 2007, there were multiple presentations by gang resource expert Richard Ramos, which the district paid for, which reached 4,000 students plus staff in 11 schools, 60 staff members in separate discussion groups, and 4 parent meetings with more than 200 adults in attendance. Increased community officer presence on campus is thanks to the help of the Santa Barbara Police Department and the County Sheriff's Office. They came forward and said, we're going to put more resource officer time on your campuses. El Puente changed their bus routes for pickup to El Puente, or pickup at El Puente at the end of the day. Now, El Puente is not one of our programs, but that's an important and highly related matter, so that students weren't making their way to the transportation terminal. This fall, we reinstituted a new serious habitual offender program. We secured probation officer presence on school campuses. We continued trainings for our campus supervisors. School sites have again been aligning discipline guides and policies in addition to updating dress codes, taking into account gang-related issues. And we have a lot of examples of school-based activities to inform parents about education, about gang issues and activities, to bring students together and to engage at-risk youth. I won't lead you through that list of activities. No, let me just skip that altogether. But we do have plenty of examples. In November, Michael Gonzalez delivered a report to the board on additional activities and considerations. We subsequently heard that student safety was not a priority of this administration. Student safety has always been a priority in this district and will always continue to be a priority in this district. In 2 weeks, we will be meeting in partnership with the city on coordinated efforts aimed at youth violence. The importance of coordinating the efforts across the community is an important thing to do. The city is taking the lead on that, but we are a partner organization in that. Today, we're continuing the discussion, and the question is, what more should we be doing? We have a number of people in the audience that I'll let Paul Turnbull introduce, because they're people that we've been working with. And I will ask Paul Turnbull, our Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Education, to move us into the discussion by reviewing some of our stronger recommendations, then open it to board discussion, and I'm sure you'll have community comments as well. Paul?
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. I first wanted to defer to Mrs. Sawaski because there are elementary principals and students in the audience, so I wanted to make sure that we could recognize them first.
Okay, I guess first, the most important thing I want to say is that the elementary district, and I'm going to start with pre-K, with our child development coordinators and teachers, we have all been talking about this issue for a long time. It's an ongoing thing we address at our meetings on a daily basis with parents and students and staff. And we consider this not only to be one of the most important things we do is providing a safe and healthy learning environment, but it's critical and it starts with us. And so most of what we will hear tonight and talk about, of course, is with secondary strategies. And Dr. Sarvis did mention many of the kinds of activities that we have in place in the elementary schools. But I know tonight's discussion is going to mostly be about secondary. But Paul Turnbull and I talked about this ahead of time and decided that we need to preface this with the fact that elementary schools and our child development program are very concerned, and we're working to build relationships with staff, students, and parents, and that we believe that building relationships and really looking at addressing the needs of all of our students emotionally, socially, physically, and academically is what we're all about. And we will continue to put more structures in place and work with the secondary district and the community. But I just wanted everyone to know that we're not taking this lightly and thinking it's a secondary issue, because we realize that it starts many times with our 3- and 4-year-olds and being connected to adults at school and feeling safe there, and the parents being a part of the partnership in developing the children together. So with that, we do have elementary principals in the room that may or may not speak, but they're available if you'd like to talk more with them later. So Paul?
Thanks. It's important, again, to reiterate what Dr. Sarvis said. This is a continuation of a previous discussion. If we frame it in the context of our goal as a community of schools, being as simple as possible, We want to have the tightest knit group of schools and community members as possible for exclusively the purpose, if anything happens, like last March 14th, I believe it was, or anything on campus, we have clear and obvious processes to follow. We know that communication is out there. We know that people are in place. We know that a reaction is inevitable and quick. We also know that we're talking about the prevention, intervention, and suppression of gang violence, specifically school violence. All of those things having been said, it's also important that we look at the report that Mr. Gonzalez put forward the first time, and we'll relook at it again today. We see that everything on those, or all those items, are merely tools that we can use for a comprehensive plan. As such, I think it's important that we look at the recommendations at the end of that plan. You'll see that they're predominantly relational based. They're not purely structural based. For instance, fences or metal detectors versus people and the relationships that lead people to further answers. We believe that this is a good answer. We believe this is a good direction, and we believe that because we also read articles, we read research, we listen to experts in our own backyard like Dr. Michael Furlong and Jill Sharkey over at UCSB. They were invited tonight. I don't see them in the audience, but they may. Oh, there they are. Thank you. They did come, and we're very happy to have them here. Because of those things and because of the support from one article that was forwarded to us just a short time ago, the Fall 2006 School Shootings Position Statement, and I'm reading now, recommends addressing school violence with a four-pronged plan, including a balanced approach, effective communication, connectedness to the community, and research-based student support. We already have many of those aspects in place. We can certainly tighten them up, but the good news is what we're talking about tonight is not starting from scratch, but continuing on from where we already are. And I just want to read one more thing, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Gonzalez, who put this forward and I believe should come up and ask questions or answer questions at your leisure. I suppose asking questions would be a little fun. Specifically, this position statement recalls analyses by the Secret Service, the FBI, and myriad researchers concluding that the most effective way to prevent targeted acts of violence at school is by maintaining close communication and trust with students and others in the community so that threats will be reported and can be investigated by responsible authorities. Open communication, obvious processes, structures in place. We've invited many guests today, and I've already mentioned two of them. We also have Ms. Penny Jenkins from the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse that's mentioned in a couple of the items that are referred here. Mayor Marty Bloom, I don't know if she could make it tonight, but I know that she had this on her docket. Chief Sanchez is out of town, but the Deputy Chief is unavailable to come tonight, although he and I spoke, so I can speak on his behalf. And we also have Lane Wheeler, there he is, for SBTA, if you would like to ask questions of him. And again, secondary principals are at the back, as well as elementary principals and district staff. Mr. Gonzalez?
Thank you. My comments will be brief and then subject to whatever kinds of questions you may have. I will share with you that the last time we discussed this at your direction, this 20-item memo has been circulated throughout the district with instructions to the principals that all advisory committees attached to the school sites, from the School Site Council, PTA, ELACs, be given an opportunity to review the materials and bring forth to you any recommendations that you may deem appropriate. I think I'll stop there. At whatever point you would like, we'll discuss the individual 20 items. I think I'd like to echo before I leave Paul Turnbull's statement that I think the research is pretty clear that the first and foremost thing that we must do to make sure that our schools are safe is to produce an environment where students feel connected. When you see the recommendations the staff have made on a priority list, that is the essence of why we push the recommendations we're pushing. It's very clear that youths who turn to gang violence, to gangs, need that additional connection to school. All right? Thank you.
First, questions for Mr. Gonzalez. No.
I can start going through the things that I haven't seen yet in the issues that you addressed. The number one recommendation is for gang intervention specialists and gang intervention classes. The specialists, did we ever see a job description for that? I don't remember seeing one.
If not, I will shortly go upstairs and produce one. I believe you had one, but we'll bring it down shortly.
Okay, yeah, that would be great to see. Because I'm not sure, maybe you could verbally describe what is it exactly that you're seeing that you'd want a gang intervention specialist to do. I know that you were sort of modeling it on something that existed, I believe at Santa Barbara High School in the past.
Correct.
But how are you envisioning it today?
With your permission, it's easier if I just go upstairs at the appropriate time and bring the job
Okay.
description and put it on the overhead, and that way we can.
Okay, great, then maybe
all
we
right.
can discuss it a little bit later.
Thank you.
Can we talk about the installation of video cameras in schools? Where are we? That was issue number 3. Do I understand that the district has a video camera that has moved from site to site? Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. What we, well, let me defer to our assistant superintendent.
Well, I can tell you from past experience as a principal, if there's been vandalism or theft or various other things, our facilities maintenance and operations department actually has cameras that are black and white. They're motion sensitive, but they're not the highest quality, not at all what we're talking about for this particular item.
Okay, so we don't really have experience of it in terms of,
Not a system-wide video surveillance system.
okay.
I just want to quickly interject here. Harding has non-functioning cameras in the, where the upper school and the lower school face on the street parking lot. And I don't know if they were ever monitored. I mean, obviously somebody, installed them. I have no idea how they functioned, whether they were successful, but they're now defunct.
It's been a while. We don't tell anyone that they're not operational, though.
Isn't the
Nobody
news
can
is
watch
out?
on Saturday night.
It says Santa Barbara Junior High School is currently exploring the installation of video cameras at the site. What's going on with that?
We do have the principal from Santa Barbara Junior High, and I would rather direct the question to him to answer. Mr. Becchio? You may recall in the proposal we mentioned that Santa Barbara High School had taken an initial look, and we also indicated to you that Santa Barbara Junior High was exploring video cameras. Mr. Becchio?
Thank you. Good evening. We have explored, one of the extent that we've explored is we actually got a price quote from a company out of Ventura for the installation of about 4 video cameras on campus. I guess if I could just relay to you my philosophy, I don't think that, my philosophy is about a balance, as was mentioned, in connecting with kids and having programs where there's, for example, mentor programs or our reconnecting youth classes where we're connecting with kids on a regular basis. In addition to that, I think it would be nice to have several video cameras in some of the key areas. Places like our PE area or our field area. So.
Okay, and I don't know how you want to work this, Mrs. Malikoff. Do you want other people to ask their questions about the first few issues, or?
Yeah, maybe we should do that. Just
Sort of,
go down
yeah.
and, yeah, I guess so. Does anyone else want to continue? Or not? Okay, maybe not.
Well, if
Ms. Cordero, would you?
Well, I had some questions about number 1, what the parent education program would look like, but I know that members from Fighting Back are going to speak to that a little bit as well, and I'm wondering if
You want to hear things? Okay.
I think we're going to hear some things from the public
Okay, let's do
that
that
might
then.
be useful in sort of prefacing our questions.
Okay, we have both public comment, and then there's a lot of people here who I think we would love to have them come up. And I'm not sure which order to do this in.
I'd like to hear from some of the experts we have.
As would I. Can we start with Mike Furlong?
We have Mike Furlong, Dr. Furlong and Dr. Sharkey both put in the speaker cards. I don't know if you want to limit them to 3 minutes, but do you want to?
No, I don't think we need to limit them at the
Okay.
moment. So if you'd like to come up and speak and start us off, maybe that would help.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I wasn't aware you were going to mention the position statement, but I thought I might start with that. Just kind of give a little context too. This is an important issue, and it's one that I think that all of us are concerned about, and the community are concerned about, and certainly the parents. Every parent and educator that's in the room understands and recognizes that school safety is a fundamental to education. And not only is it fundamental, it's also a constitutional right. In 1982, the voters in California passed the Victims' Bill of Rights, one of the many, many initiatives that we have in California, which we love. It took a few years, of course, before the first lawsuit went through the system, where a student then suggested that schools weren't providing the safe context for the students. Anyway, out of that came interest from the State Department of Education to say, wait a minute, we need to be planning purposefully for safe schools. And in 1988, actually, 89, Rich Morrison, who was Assistant Superintendent in Ventura County, now retired, and worked for Ventura County Schools, got the contract from the state to develop the first safe school planning guide. And I had the privilege and honor of working on that. And I can tell you right from the get-go, the interesting thing in that process was, as we met with parents and with educators in the community, and we said, what is a safe school? How do we get to a safe school? Everyone envisioned a very welcoming place. Wes Mitchell was the chief of police in LA Unified. He was very involved in that process, and he was one of the biggest advocates for even back then, making linkages and connections with kids, creating a climate where students were supported and wanted to be at school. So that was right from the get-go that happened. So we do have a constitutional right to safe, secure, and peaceful schools. So this isn't just a sort of an interesting discussion. It's something that we have an obligation to provide, and I think everyone recognizes the interest in that. The other thing is, just as a little context too, in all that time we've done a lot of safe school planning with schools and collected data in schools, and just there's some things, for example, like I know we're concerned about weapons on campus, and I read an article in the paper yesterday or the day before it was, which talked about that. And just as a quick thing, when we look at the surveys that students do, who we think we might be saying is telling us they bring weapons to school is not always who we might think it is. So for example, in all of our years and looking at many, many different schools, over 20 or 30,000 different kids responding, the one school that had the highest weapon possession rate in the past 12 months was a rural high school in Oregon. Way, way, way high. And in checking, it was the context where the students lived in the rural community and often carried knives for hunting or some other type of thing like that. So it's important when we look at the information to also dig deeper. The reports don't give us the complete picture. They give us an idea of something that we need to follow up on and to check and to look in more deeply. What I did want to highlight, and I did leave some material, and I can leave it here for the board, is the position statement that came out of the consortium of school violence researchers and practitioners. And just so you know real quickly, this position statement, which talks about balance, communications, connectedness, and support in response to it, this came out of spontaneously, a grassroots thing came out. Rich Mayer, who's at Rutgers University, contacted a bunch of us mucky mucks in academia who've been doing research in school violence and said, we were responding to the shooting that occurred at the school, the Amish school in Pennsylvania. And out of that context, the response from Washington, I'll say, was that it was used as a message to say we needed more character education in school. And we thought, this man going into an Amish school, the message from that is that we need more character education in school. Those little girls probably had more character in their fingernail than I've got in my whole body. And we said, you know what, we need this every time something like this happens. There's always a reaction. What do we do? And everyone then starts coming up with a rationale. So we decided we're going to start this consortium. The purpose of the consortium is try to disseminate the best information that we have available. The position statement, which was alluded to, and I'll leave a copy of it for you here, was written by a group of national, you'll see the list, it's a long list of people who contribute to this. I had an opportunity to contribute. Jill Sharkey had an opportunity to contribute to it. And it's been endorsed by the American Academy of Pediatrics, by the American Counseling Association, by the American Psychiatric Association, the American Psychological Association, the American Association of Secondary School Principals, National Association of School Psychologists, National Educational Association, and I'll even include a letter from our own Jack O'Connell on top of it, and about 13 other state departments of education have also supported it. So this is a document that has broad appeal in terms of a balanced approach to responding to school violence and safety. And just so you know, as another thing, the consortium is in the midst of developing a number of different documents that would be very instructive to the district and to the boards, I think, not maybe immediately, but in the short-term future, that address things such as school resource officers. What do we know about school resource officers? How do they best contribute? How can they use most effectively? What are some of the legal issues involved in school violence and disruption? Bullying prevention. Sue Limber, who works with the Old VIAS program, is writing that up. Youth gun access and guns in schools. We're going to have documents. So we're going to have documents that are not like, that are meant to try to provide guidance about what's the best information available and how can policy best support the efforts as they've been described in terms of school safety. Okay,
Well,
so
that sounds very helpful and something that we should definitely have.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could answer
Yes.
a question for us.
I will try.
What more should we be doing? Is there some suggestions that you have just that we are not doing now that you would suggest that we do?
Well, I think engaging in this process is particularly important. And I think the engaging the community at many different levels and engaging the community and you all with this staff, with the administration is important because this really needs to be a coordinated effort. And I know I can just tell you real quickly, in a book chapter I had to write recently, the 20th time we had to write the chapter on how to prevent school violence, I kept going, well, what's missing? And now they talk about multi-level, everything's multi-level approaches, right? Universal, targeted, and all that type of intervention. And it got me thinking that it's not just that we need to say, well, we need to have a program that kind of targets everybody, tries to create a climate that's supportive, creates meaningful engagement for the students, participation, helps them feel connected. There's a document I can just show you here that's from the University of Minnesota on youth violence prevention, and it's all about connectedness. It's how do we engage students meaningfully. So we have to do those things. What do we do then where we target specific students? Some of them may be having difficulties, and we know that. There are programs out there that have been used, Check and Connect and other programs that try to identify students and provide them with linkages and connections day and day, follow up on school. And then there's some where we just need more intensive interventions that might be provided by community agencies or by public health in collaboration with them. So there's those types of things. But it got me thinking, what we really need too is alignment across policies and practices. In other words, what you're all doing right now is particularly instructive because you're setting the parameters around how is the district going to respond and create safety in the schools. So I always think of, well, what are the policies universally and targeted and for specific interventions? So from my view, it's the integration that makes these things work.
Okay. Anyone else would like to ask a question at this point?
And be careful, I can talk all night.
We can listen too. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And also from UCSB, Dr. Jill Sharkey, who appropriately enough wrote surveillance down on her speaker card, so that will tie right into what we've just been talking about.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here to speak with you. This is just a topic that I'm very passionate about, and I'll try to talk a little bit differently than Mike did so that you have a broad view. I am, as you know, a school violence researcher, but I'm also have been an employee of the school district, so I know firsthand the quality of the local schools, and I'm also a parent, and I anticipate and look forward to my children going through the district. So I'm very excited to collaborate with you in this endeavor. So I wanted to talk really specifically about your struggle in terms of looking at the California Healthy Kids survey and saying, what do we do with this result? Because you can't ignore the fact that a certain percentage of students reported bringing weapons on campus. Mike and I actually have written about this topic and looked at what these surveillance surveys tell us in terms of the data on weapons position specifically. And we actually have found that the students who report, a large percentage of the students who report bringing weapons on campus the most often, so they bring weapons on campus every day of the school year, they also report that they smoke marijuana 30 times or 40 times in a month. They do cocaine 40 times in a month. They eat carrots 4 times a day. They drink 5 glasses of milk every hour. So there is a specific type of response pattern that is filling out the most extreme response in every item. And that does account for some percentage of those responders. So when you look at the data, and you're looking at a very small percentage of the students, granted, it's not a small percentage if we're talking about weapons possession, but it is when you look at the number of students who are surveyed, and you see that there's these extreme responders, there's responders who say that they're lying. We can't be sure that it's accurate. And so what is needed is we have the surveillance survey to give us ideas of things we want to look into further, and then we need a district-specific assessment. Have we ever seen a gun on campus? What are the things that we catch students doing that are of concern? What do students and parents and community members report are the violence issues? So that would be an area to go for in terms of assessment of this issue further. And then in terms of the surveillance as a response to this problem, there is research on using surveillance in schools, and most of it shows that this response is either inconclusive in terms of its effect, or that it's actually harmful. And the reason it's harmful is because if we're creating nurturing climates that students want to come to and feel safe and secure, when we put up fences and increase security guards and put up video cameras, we're telling the students we don't trust them. We're telling students and their families that it's not safe. And then it reduces communication and reduces trust between the students and the faculty and the administrators. So this is one of the reasons that we hypothesize that surveillance actually can be harmful instead of helpful. But it is a natural response. What can we do? It seems like an easy solution, but it actually is. It's very expensive, as I saw from the budget projections, and we can do a lot of positive things with that money. In terms of positive strategies, what I saw listed in this document that I looked at this evening, there were a lot of great ideas. The positive behavior support can be implemented at universal, secondary, tertiary levels. And I think that what Mike said about things needing to be connected is very true. And one of the ways that we can do that I think we could improve on, is having a data system that tracks students and things that happen to them, because we don't want to be caught in the situation of finding out that a student is in extreme distress and not knowing before they get to that point. Because it is our responsibility to provide really positive interventions in terms of effective and research-based interventions to help those students stay engaged at school. Because it is the most at-risk students who we're trying to get at with this surveillance, but by doing that, we may alienate the rest of the students and may not catch these at-risk students. And what we need to do is try to come up with interventions that will really re-engage the students and give them the education that they have the right to receive. So that's sort of in brief my presentation. Do you have questions?
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Harder.
Yeah, Madam Chair. I would like to ask you a question about the district-specific survey. We have not done anything like that. Have you worked with districts before on surveys specific to their district?
Well, we in our some of the articles we've written, and in a book chapter that I think I have a copy here today, but we can get you. It's not, the other thing I was going to say is there's no kind of response any district can just take and adopt. Every district's different. The issues are unique. Obviously, we're not going to do what South Central LA is going to do. So what needs to happen is, it's like Mike said, exactly what's happening today. We need to ask parents, teachers, students, figure out what we hypothesize might be going on, and then work together to come up with, it could be a brief survey of various stakeholders. And I know that Mike and I would be happy to collaborate on those types of things.
As an individual board member, I think it's an excellent place to begin this additional effort that we're talking about. I mean, obviously, we've taken steps up to this point, and now we're talking about moving forward. And I think it would be really critical in terms of making a concerted, integrated effort to make a survey part of the
Right.
process.
And then that leads to intervention, because even if you know that there's an evidence-based intervention out there, connecting everything together is, again, a unique district situation that needs to be, unfortunately, there's no easy, let's go and implement something, but once you have it really figured out, it's likely to be successful. So.
Yeah, I just had a quick question, and I wondered if you could just talk a little bit more about, you said, you were talking about the need for sort of positive behavior support.
Right.
And you said that sometimes the more sort of the surveillance kind of approaches don't really work, and in fact can have a sort of an intensifying effect
Right.
on the problem. And I was wondering if you could just maybe talk a little bit more about that, because it seemed sort of intuitively to me that that would be the case. Because when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, well, prison is one of the most controlled environments a person can possibly be in.
Right.
And yet, I mean, it's also one of the environments that has the most horrible behaviors that take place. I mean, people still find ways to do really vicious things to each
Right.
other. And so it sort of occurred to me that it has to be environment and climate that makes the change. And so I was wondering if you could maybe just talk a little bit more about how we do that,
How we do implement the positive.
how we can
responses?
implement the positive, and if our, I guess also, are there other things besides videos and fences that also have been found to not be helpful? I mean, because we're really looking at
Right.
what should we do, and I don't want us to go down a road that's going to exacerbate the problem.
Right. Well, my initial response is we'd have to really work together to come up with that plan. It's hard to speak in a brief amount of time about that. But also I, have initial reactions that obviously we need to have very clear school rules that everyone must follow, but we should not have a zero tolerance approach to discipline in terms of a student breaks the rule and then no matter what, they're expelled from school and they don't get to come back. We need to look at students' unique needs. If there's, learning disability or a mental health issue or family problems or anything like that, then the school needs to have an intervention that matches the student's needs. So on one hand, we do need to have those clear rules, high expectations. We shouldn't assume that students are going to be doing things that are wrong and bad. We should expect them to behave well. One thing at a more a level where students have already done something wrong that I think that this district would be a great thing to implement is actually called threat assessment, which doesn't sound very positive, but what it is when a student does make a threat or poses a threat or says they're going to hurt someone, it's a process of responding to that involves both the discipline, but as well it involves the intervention and a mental health plan and trying to figure out why the student did that. It doesn't just automatically do a discipline approach without the other aspect, because we know that students, when we expel them, that doesn't mean they won't come back with a gun and do something bad. So expelling a student doesn't get them off of our backs as much as we maybe like that too. So those are just some initial responses, but I think it really would take a much broader discussion.
Thank
Mike,
you
did
very
have
much.
something to add?
If I could, there was a question about the surveying, and I realized I forgot to mention, and it sparked my memory, is that we don't need to wait for this stuff to happen, and we haven't. Paul, in fact, initiated a process at La Goleta Valley. I'm going no, it's G. Okay, at Goleta Valley a couple of years ago, but right at the end of the school year, because they were concerned about bullying on school campus, and I thought it was crazy, quite honestly to tell you. It was like the end of May, and there's like, well, we need to do a survey. We want to know what's going on. We want to do some planning and some prevention, and one of my doctoral students happened to have her husband taught there, and all of a sudden it happened. I said, well, we need to get parental permission and all that. Okay, we'll get it done. Well, they got it done. Now, out of that spark of interest, they got information back. It was good information. They wanted to do it again. But out of that partnership came an opportunity to get a grant from the Hamilton Fish Institute in Washington to expand and enhance this. And we thought, oh, because we've done this great work, we were able to sell them on the idea. And then eventually, now we have a bullying survey, which is being used for the Youth Coalition in our community. It's been used in Santa Barbara High School. It was presented at the state conference. It got a research award there, and the money from the research award went back to the associated students. So I'm thinking there's interest that when people work together and collaborate, they can have student involvement, they can have community involvement, and we can make this happen. There's absolutely no doubt about it, and we have a perfect example of it already happening in our community in that way. Okay.
Great.
Mike Stiver.
Dr. Noel.
You used a word in a context that when you were talking about the possible negative effects of surveillance and more mechanistic solutions, you used the word hypothesized effects, and I wasn't sure I understood what you meant.
Well,
Is this a research conclusion? So in this field they talk about research-based findings,
right.
Or is this ongoing research where answers are still not clear?
There has been conclusions. What I was speaking about in terms of the results of analyzing the effects of surveillance the conclusion has been either there's really no effect or the effect is harmful. And I did bring a research study to that effect that I can share with you that at least summarizes that research a little bit.
There's a review of that research?
Yes.
I'd like to, if you
Absolutely,
share
and I
that.
have some books with me too, and I know we have several resources.
Speaking of resources, does the district have the handbook on school violence by Shane Jimerson and Michael Furlong? Do we have that in a library here where all of us can look at it?
We just started checking. I don't think we do.
We should. We should.
Oh, do we?
We do.
Oh,
I would
yes, we
expect you've
do.
read it from cover to cover.
I'm surprised. It's such an expensive
I believe
book,
it. I'm
Michael.
not joking. Yeah, that's great. No, I tried to find it in the local bookstores, and they, even I have to say, Mike, even UCSB bookstore didn't have that book. I got to talk to them.
We've got to require it for our students, then they'll have it.
And I read your chapter in there, and I was absolutely fascinated by the what you already reported, that the people who bring the weapons also smoke the most dope and eat the most carrots.
Right. We
Is
figured
there a
those students
connection
couldn't
there? Are
possibly
they
be
bringing
at
a
school.
knife to cut the carrots, or?
Right.
Ms. Parker.
I
thought you
want
were
to
done.
just say one more thing. This is more contextual. There have been several references to a process that we have going here. And I want to say that we don't have a process. We have a meeting. And in fact, some of the people at this meeting have been working in this field for many, many years and didn't know about the meeting. And so I think what we have to start a process that involves the whole community. And that's going to mean bringing together people of disparate points of view and trying to hammer out a selective, I'm not going to say a grand consensus, my guess is that's probably going to be very difficult, but selective consensuses. And it should be a very open process, and my point of view, create that broad umbrella, and within that, do some research. And I really endorse your support for the idea of a district-specific survey. We haven't done enough research. We don't, based on your reviews, we don't know the connections between fear, perception of fear on campus. The kids report being afraid, and bringing weapons. Dr. Hayden's pointed out that that there's a connection in the
Right.
Healthy Kids Survey data.
Right.
Well, that rings bells for me. We call that in my field the security dilemma. Why am I armed? Because he's armed. Well, there's a big literature on how to reduce that kind of thing. It's called graduated reciprocation intention reduction. Charles Osgood, University of Illinois. And it's a proven technique, proven in my world, it's proven between the Soviet Union and the United States, okay? It started with an individual psychologist, a social psychologist. I would suggest that we should be looking at a broad range of things. If that's why and we hear it in expulsion hearings, I have a weapon because I'm afraid. It's for self-defense. It's very easy to discount that, believe me. It's very easy to discount it when you hear it. But if that's true, and we need research to give us some confidence in that relationship, if that's true, there's policy guidance in that for us. We need to know that. It should be part of this process.
Thank you. I want to let the
me.
public have a chance too. So,
I just wanted to touch on, and Dr. Noel, I agree with you. I mean, obviously, we have been meeting, this has been coming up regularly for years, really, long before I came on the board, but it's not like we can say we're going to have this meeting every quarter or something like that, so that the public knows that it's a constant process with us. There are a lot of things we're going to be talking about, but while you're up there, I wanted to ask a quick question about things like tip lines, because we did talk about, you talked about how important communication was and connectedness to school, and one of the issues that's discussed in this is the idea of a tip line. So do you have any thoughts about that?
I don't have any off the top of my head knowledge about any research on that, but I do know that in terms of what I was speaking about threat assessment, one of the things so the most successful practitioners who work in the Columbine area, who have been doing this very rigorously since the shooting incident there, they talk all the time about the need for communication, and that reporting or tips to administrators and faculty need to be, those communication lines need to be very open, because oftentimes it is other students who get this information first, and trainings of the staff, faculty, administrators, and students on what to report and how to report that. And so I think a tip line, or even just training in the school as to how that would work within the school environment, seems to me on the surface to be a good idea, but I don't know the research exactly on that. So.
I don't want to keep Dr. Sharkey up here, but that's an idea that I was very interested in as well, was the idea of the tip line. It's relatively inexpensive. Obviously, everything has to do with how it's implemented and what the follow-through is, but I think that kids have a strong need to tell when they're holding on to something that's very weighty, very troubling, that they have a very strong need to go to someone, whether it's anonymously or otherwise. And I think the more that we can build those connections, the better. And I really like the idea of the tip line, as opposed to, many other kinds of technologies that we could be using. I think it's inexpensive. I think it keeps lines of communication open, even if they're anonymous.
And I think that's the next step is when we get the tips or we do a risk assessment, when we use that information, we need to take care that we use it to provide interventions to help students, and that we don't use it to harm or exclude students. And that the only time we do those punishment discipline measures is when an actual observed or behavior has occurred that requires that kind of discipline. So just to reiterate, make sure we all
that was
are on
why I
the same
used.
page.
That's why I said how it's implemented, and
Right.
and how you name it. I mean, maybe not necessarily a tip line, but some kind of helpline or
Right.
that
so that
kind
the
of thing.
students know that if they report a particular student for suspected violent thoughts or behaviors, that student will get help, and that they're not going to send their friend or acquaintance away to jail. Right. So, exactly, yeah.
We're going to need legal advice on that, because once information becomes part of the public agency, then the agency is under certain legal obligations about it, if I understand correctly. So.
Right, but we're also we're under legal obligations.
Fine-tuning.
Right, for each student too.
We're already in process of working that up. In fact, I believe Santa Barbara High School had a tip line in place this last year. Paul, maybe you'd like to comment on the result.
Well, it came out partly, when I first arrived there, I had business cards printed up, and we put business cards in the mailboxes indoors of homes, basically 3 blocks in a concentric circle around the school. And then we redid it after March 14th of last year. We advertised it within the school on the bulletin in a variety of different ways, and for a grand total of 0 calls. And that was checked weekly, basically bi-weekly, by one point person in the front office. And we asked around about it. We asked ASB, we asked ELAC, we asked a variety of kids, and they knew about it, and community members knew about it. But it doesn't mean that it was implemented in the right way. It just means that it was available and not used.
We'll still pursue it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think what we're going to do next is let the public come and talk to us for about, we have 3-minute limit for each person. And then I'd like for the principals, and I know we have several principals here, to at the end, if there's after the public is done, to then come up and if they have things to add to that. So I'm not ignoring the principals if they're
Madam
here.
Chair?
Yes.
I was just wondering, we do have members of Fighting Back here who have ongoing relationships with the district, and I was wondering if we could allow them to present the information that they wanted to present as well.
Okay. Yes.
Also because I think it informs some of the public comments as well.
Sounds like a good place to start also. So somebody from Fighting Back, do we have their slip or?
I've got, not from Fighting Back.
Penny Jenkins and Eduardo
Yeah,
Cuellar
if you wanna
here.
go ahead.
Hi, I'm really here to listen because I feel we're partners with the school district in many different programs and things we've done. When Fighting Back started about 15 years ago, it involved everybody talking to each other, from the government, the businesses, the schools, everyone. And that was the purpose of it. And that's the purpose of what we're looking at now again. We have been providing a variety of things in the schools, and a lot of them is because we've jointly done a lot of grants together. When Safe Schools in the 90s, when all the Safe School stuff was out, we jointly did a grant for Safe Schools, Healthy Students. And one of the reasons we got the grant at that point, and I don't know if I should say that, but it was because there were gangs and there were problems. So, I mean, this is not like, oh, wow, this is just now happening. So we have done lots of studying, a lot of working with different groups, a lot of working with people here, finding things out like the Parent Project. The Parent Project was something that we got from Paramount, California. It was supposed to be the best thing to do. It was 16 sessions long. We started doing the Parent Project. We couldn't keep parents 16 sessions. They weren't that interested in staying that long. So together we modified it and we called it the Parent Program, hitting on the key things that mattered. And we've seen over 1,500 kids in the district with that, and parents with that, pardon me. We do the Super Program, because that was something that when kids are kicked out of when they're caught with alcohol, drugs, or whatever, they and their parents would go to this 4-session thing. And it's a matter of not teaching them about drugs and alcohol, but about communicating with one another. So we are doing a lot of things like that. I'm probably going to forget a million things. We have Teen Court, which we implemented with the schools. And that's if a kid does something wrong, they can be referred by their teacher or principal or whoever to Teen Court. And Teen Court is a jury of their peers. And those kids help decide what that kid may need. The teachers can also just refer them to the classes that we have on alcohol or drugs, on on stealing, on conflict resolution, on a lot of different things. So we have been working with the community, with the schools. We have youth service specialists in every secondary school. And we started them out being people that if the kids were starting to fall through the cracks, this person provided sober activities, someone to talk to, and a lot of things. As time progressed, we were finding that the kids were being referred to these youth service specialists that were cutting their wrists, doing things like that. And we thought, oh, wow, we got to have somebody better than that in there. So we hired people with master's degrees in counseling, so we now have therapeutic YSSs and we have regular YSSs. And so we have tried to work together and tried to answer the needs. And everyone has been really wonderful at working with us. And we're thrilled we have these youth service specialists. They are going to be going away. A lot of them are at the end of a grant that happens this summer. But Ed, maybe you want to add more to this. Ed runs Teen Court. He has run the mentor program. We have about 100 mentors, and that's the elementary school. And we feel that that's very beneficial. And I will let him just say a little more. I really wasn't planning on talking. I would be a little more organized. I wanted to listen. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Eduardo Cohen, and I'm a director of delinquency prevention with the council. Before coming to Fighting Back, I had an 18-year career as a gang investigator working with the California Department of Youth Authority. I had made presentations to Congress with regards to California youth gangs and its impact on the nation. I've also worked as a consultant with various communities across the United States to address the gang issues that have been affecting those communities as California gang members have been moving or migrating to other communities, and these communities have no knowledge or an idea on how to address the issue, except for the fact that now it was a prevalent problem in their community. In coming into Fighting Back, it's like in any community, we have to address this issue on a different levels, from prevention, intervention, and even sometimes even the treatment aspect. There's definitely a nexus between alcohol and drugs here in Santa Barbara and our youth gangs, because that's where they get the money and power from to make their mechanism work. And it's impacting a lot of the influence with youth. We need to differentiate when we're talking about gang membership and the influence that the gangs have on the larger student body or the population of our young people in our community, because that sets a mindset that impacts young people to act out impulsively when they're growing through that age of 10 to 18, and they're trying to navigate through the minefields of insanity that take place within that period. So it's easy for kids to step sideways and make some mistakes. We recognize, and I hear what we're saying here, is that one of the things is communication and having kids to be able to trust us as authority figures, to be able to, one, give the information that might help them save face so that they don't become involved in a situation that they're going to self-destruct in, or they put themselves in a situation where they may harm somebody else. We also have to look at the situation in which, one, we're educating our teachers to communicate with one another. There's a big emphasis on the kids should be talking to us, but there should be the training in, one, identification, and the second thing is to have the teachers being able to, one, present and communicate, and how important that is to communicate, that we don't isolate, we're not islands in our own classroom, but we work as a collective group so that we can, one, create a safe and secure environment for our students, and that the students recognize that we're being responsible to them, and that, one, we're going to protect them in that measure. I think that's where we start developing the trust of the student body to be able to come to us as authority figures so that that happens. The last thing I'm going to say is that when we looked at an example of Teen Court, when I looked at working as an officer, coming into a court-involved program, but much more an intervention, it was empowering teenagers to create their own destiny and change their own communities and to become involved in helping their peers make better decisions. And I think if there's anything that we need to do is try to solicit the assistance, listen to what the students are. One of the concerns that I hear today is that I hope we do not make the mistake when we hear this Healthy Kids survey and we hear that, there's potentials of harm, that kids are saying that there's weapons on campus, that we've gone and we heard a report from kids, from our youth leaders that have gone to UCSB from a leadership conference, and they're saying the same things, that we're not paying attention to what our kids are saying, and we need to focus and say, it could be a possibility. Let's look at the proactive approaches that we might take to circumvent this, instead of addressing the tragedy after the fact. we can take the front end and look at it. So there's some things within Fighting Back as partners we've been doing for over 2 decades to address this issue. We have the resources, we have the knowledge, we have the intelligence to really address this issue and hit some home runs that are going to make a difference for the whole district and the students that are within it.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad, Penny, you did come forward. A number of Fighting Back programs have been just essential to us. Teen Court, for example, saves lives. It virtually saves lives.
May I ask, Madam President, there are people here also from who have experience, and I don't think that they plan to come to speak, but I think it would be very helpful if we just, somewhere in this proceeding, could hear who they are and what they have been doing so that we get a feeling for the breadth of the resource base in the community that we can draw upon. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but Matt Sanchez is here, and Babatunde is here.
Mr. Sanchez has filled out a speaker's card, and so has Mr.
So after
Vasquez.
maybe those people who don't speak, we'll get to some other people. I first wanted to actually get to DLAC because we have on here a memo which is very interesting, and I'm wondering if somebody from DLAC, I have a name here of, I'm sorry, can't read.
Esteban Ortiz.
Is anybody here from Zona Seca? That is certainly an organization we'd want to talk to also. Hear from.
Thank you. My name is Esteban Ortiz, and I'm a representative of DLAC, which is the District English Learner Advisory Committee. That reports directly to the board here. We meet on a monthly basis here on this premises, and I could say all this in Spanish for a better effect, and letting the community know that we as Latino parents are also vested in finding a solution to this problem. But for lack of time and all that, I'll just proceed in English. We have 6 points here that refer to the discussions that we had. We actually have about 3 meetings on this subject on Michael's report, and we basically condensed all of our solutions, if you want to call them that way, into 6 points. And if you can look at them, basically most of them are speaking in behalf of the positive solution, not the negative. So the first one basically says that we are against building fences in our schools. And again, we basically arrived intuitively at that recommendation, like Ms. Cordero said, the worst examples of human behavior are basically inside jails. And if we do put fences on our schools, we're basically creating a prison effect. And we definitely don't want to do that. We want to be able to have the district and the authorities basically treat the problem from the inside out. If we create fences, we're basically treating the problem from the outside in. And we definitely don't think that that's a good solution for the problem. On number 2, on the intervention specialists, we basically said not 4 intervention specialists on those designated schools, but 5. And you can read along with me. Basically, we recommend having 1 in each of the schools at Santa Barbara High, Santa Barbara Junior High, Dos Pueblos High School, San Marcos High School, and La Cumbre Junior High School. And again, the cost for this is upwards of $250,000 annually. We strongly at DLAC feel that this is a good thing to start with. Again, not 4 but 5 on those different schools, but we feel strongly that these monies should not be looked at just coming from the district funds. It basically is a community effort, and the city should have something to say as far monetarily as far as bringing up these monies forward to hire these people. Not only the district, but some contributions from the police department and other entities in the community that are involved in this and that have the funds to support this kind of thing, that are interested in our community. So again, $250,000 by the district is not a good idea. We should have some of that money available for other programs in the school that speak of to this issue on a positive manner. We did say that we supported the installation of video cameras in our school as another preventative measure and supervision tool. Again, intuitively said that because we thought, well, if we have this kind of technology guarding some of our premises, maybe that'll free up some human resources to go elsewhere in the facility and apply some of that human power to try to have some positive reaction to the problem. I know I heard something that speaks, to the contrary of that point, but that's something we came up with. The next four basically, again, recommending the positive, recommending parenting program workshops for parents, and then better educated parents, better educated students, communicating. That would just bring out something positive rather than treating it on a negative level. Support the expansion of activities, extrascholastic programs, such after school and vacation period programs. I know I did see a positive effect of the city providing some low cost or no cost after school programs this year. I work at the Montecito YMCA, and I do see, the positive effect of providing programs at no cost or low cost for the youth in our community. So, there's no negative to say about that. It brings the kids out from the community into a controlled environment where they find positive things to do rather than just having them outside, just doing whatever they can find. And believe me, if they're out there just trying to find something, they're going to find most likely the negative first rather than something that will keep them entertained and doing a good thing. And the last thing, I'm kind of biased on this one because coming from Cesar Chavez Charter School, my kid uses uniforms. And we feel that using uniforms is also a very positive thing because it, rather than having a fence, we can have uniforms. Uniform is kind of a good thing because then you will be able to identify who belongs in there and who does not. I'll just read on. It's requiring school uniforms would permit the school officials to more easily identify intruders, thus providing more security for students at schools, but only if the idea is endorsed and supported by all and fully implemented. School uniforms can serve as a kind of fence or defense to prevent gang-related violence and help students combat the influence of gang-style dress and attitudes. That's basically what we came up with as a committee, and thanks for listening, and I hope that you do take into consideration those recommendations. If you have any questions whatsoever.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
for your thoughtful list. This is really wonderful to have this. Yes.
May I also comment that in our joint meeting with the City Council, you'll see a report on the increased numbers of students in after-school activities in the city programs. That will be at the end of February.
Well, to get everybody in, now I'm going to have to go to 3 minutes. I'm sorry. We're going to have to.
All right, let's go with Mr. Vince Castro, please, followed by Mr. Matt Sanchez.
Hello. My name is Vincent Castro. I work with the All for One program. I'm project coordinator. 20 years old, born and raised here in Santa Barbara, California. And I'd just like to start where I was in my early teens. Gangs, drugs, truancy, not going to school, juvenile hall, just mixed up in the wrong crowd. I went down the wrong road. My mom and dad are here. I have my family and everything. It's not like I don't have a mom or a dad. I just kind of veered down that road and ended up on probation, juvenile drug court, successfully graduated that with the All for One program. I entered the program in 2003. Just helped me do so many things with the mentoring that I received in the program with 3 specific individuals, Matt Sanchez, Anthony Prieto, and Richard Munoz, and they just showed me just a love that I didn't really know that was out there. I just didn't know that there was someone out there that cared, you know, and it was just a real big influence on my life. Made me start changing things for the better. Where I am now, like I said, I'm working with the All for One program and graduated high school. I'm going to be attending Santa Barbara City College this semester, 28th I start. I'm back to play some football and coach the YFL team this year, and I'm just giving back everything that was given to me. So, thanks.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Matt Sanchez, followed by Carolyn Renard.
Okay, I got to use cheaters now. My name is Matt Sanchez. I'm the executive director for All for One. I just want to just kind of touch on a couple issues. It's youth violence, not just gang violence, that we need to address. Only because when we talk about gang violence, instead of just youth violence, because there's date rapes, there's bullying, there's and you don't have to be in a gang, and it goes across the board. When we talk about gangs, we talk about what we see in the media, and we talk about what we see in the papers, and sometimes that puts a thought already in our head that it's a targeted group that we're blaming, and that we need to do this, and sometimes it creates panic rather than a calculated response. We have mandatory sentencing for certain things, but maybe there should be options also. Okay, there is, and I'm not saying anything about the mandatory programs that are out there, because it is going to take a community to change the way we think about youth violence. It is going to take all of us. I'm not blaming this group, but I know that when we, for cost-effective reasons, when we divided the schools, high schools up, when you live in a certain area, you go to a certain high school, that, to use the same word, exasperated the conflicts, where they grew up together at one time, now they don't know each other. And it's kind of hard to fix now, but that doesn't mean it's not fixable. We talk about GRIP through the Santa Barbara PD, and believe me, I got a great relationship with Cam. Vince and I golfed with him, and Vince got to talk to him. And one thing that he told me when Cam went to the bathroom, dude, I'm golfing with the chief of police, Never thought he'd have a relationship with not only an officer, but somebody of that caliber.
30 seconds.
Okay. Santa Barbara is a unique community. It is going to take a tailored response, not something that works someplace else. Father Greg Boyle said, we don't want to do homewood industries like McDonald's, serves 5 billion. Every community has its own response to the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you a quick question? The All for One program is, who is this through? I'm unfamiliar with it. I'm sorry.
It's Santa Barbara's best kept secret.
Yeah, it must be. From me.
It was a group of guys from the different gangs who started it. I just happened to be the poster child. And I got them together, and we did something because in '91 there was a shooting and a couple deaths, and we figured we had to take the responsibility of something that we helped create. And so we got them together. about 100 gang members together from Lompoc, Goleta, West Side, East Side, Carboneria, and we took them on a weekend trip. And after 3 days, when there was tension in the beginning, after 3 days, they didn't want to go home. They wanted to better get to know this other people in their group. And that's what we do. What they see sometimes, they don't get to see life. Their view of life is distorted. From the corner to the school and back to one side of State Street. We show them the other end of the spectrum. Mammoth Mountain, Lake Tahoe, trips to prisons, trips to universities, and a real caring relationship. And that's what it's going to take.
Thank you so much. That was
You're welcome.
amazing.
And can I ask him a
Yeah.
quick question,
Yes.
too?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you working in all of our schools?
Not yet.
Okay.
We have been to quite a bit of the schools. Most of the principals do know us. I'm glad for this meeting because we just set up with Principal Vale over there to come and have Vince work with kids at his school. And I'm going to twist John's, Beck Gill's arm, and David Ortiz and Kathy Abney has been great in allowing us access in there. Cecilia Molina. Principal San Marcos is here, and we're gonna twist his arm also with your help. I know Mr. Turnbull and one of the kids that we actually sat in on opposite ends of is doing really well now and has left that organization that he was in. So we will be in your schools, yes.
Thank you.
No, just a quick question. Is Mr. Sanchez's contact information on the
His
speaker slip? Because I want to make sure we have your
number is-
contact information.
Absolutely.
We have it.
Okay.
Thank you. The email address is allforoneyouthandmentoring@yahoo.com.
Mr. Sanchez, Mr. Sanchez attended some board meetings a few years ago when the truancy policy was being discussed and debated, and we miss him.
This is very hard to keep for 3 minutes. There's just too many wonderful things
Yeah.
going on in this community.
Carolyn Renard, followed by Joan Esposito.
The comments I'm going to make, you've heard before. I've made many of these comments repeatedly over the last few years. I would like to echo Matt Sanchez's comments about this is not necessarily just a gang problem, and it's not necessarily just a youth violence problem. These are just the outward symptoms, obviously, of much larger problems. And while you can get some progress probably from treating it as just a gang problem or just a youth violence problem, you're not going to really get the meaningful progress that you really need to get to make a dent in the problem that's going on in the schools and in the community. There's been a lot of talk about research, but let's look at some of the research. 80 to arguably 90% of the kids that are in the juvenile justice system and that are incarcerated have learning disabilities, ADD, mental health problems, and other problems. The research, and I've said this before to the board over and over, the research is clear. Let's address the underlying problems. And clearly there is a huge problem in this, not only this school district, but in all the schools in this county with kids with disabilities, and particularly learning disabilities, ADD, and mental health problems, not getting the services they need. And it's very clear why. Of course, it costs money. And the schools fight those services with their last drop of blood, because apparently if you give one kid the appropriate services, the other parents will find out about it, and then you give it to all of them. But if you really want to address these problems, you really need to look beyond these sort of catchwords that that the school administration tends to run with also. Also, I have, looking at these interventions suggested by the school administrations, I don't see hardly anything that has to do with connecting schools more, connecting the students more with the schools. I see getting more control over students and more interventions to do something to punitively intervene if they do something wrong. And, I don't understand how Mr. Gonzalez can say that most of these suggestions have to do with students being more connected to the school. Take a look at them. And I have been speaking about, the federal research. The research has been clear for years. Punitive authoritarian interventions don't work. I'm sure everyone at your level of involvement with the schools, the administration at the school board, knows of that research. It's clear it doesn't work for gangs, it doesn't work in schools. The Federal Department of Education research has shown that these positive school-wide intervention programs do work, and they're available. They've been available for years, and I've been coming to the board for, I don't know if it's years, at least 1 year, saying that this is the intervention that you guys need to take. Somehow, I hear some of that discussion going on now, but not very much. And I don't know why. It's going to end up being more cost effective for the community, not maybe for the schools, but for the community to take these kind of approaches.
Thank you. And now we need to move to Mrs. Esposito, followed by Laura Baker.
Yes, good evening. Joan Esposito, the founder of the Dyslexia Awareness and Resource Center. I'm very pleased to see that you're delving into this issue, but I did not see anything in this report that related to learning disabilities or attention deficit disorder, and I would like to work with you on that side of it to incorporate this into some of your suggestions on assessing the children. I did give you a packet tonight on and two documents, and I have some in the back for the audience. And one of them was, we have gone over and over juvenile delinquency for the 20 years I've been in this field. In fact, I'm a consultant to the U.S. Justice Department in Washington, D.C., and I have written articles on this subject, and I've met in Washington, D.C. with the groups of judges and police forces from around the country. And we all agree that the majority of children with learning disabilities, majority of children who have in juvenile justice system have learning disabilities, and like Ms. Renard said, I won't repeat it. But I did give you a document, and it's back. I got it from the Santa Barbara News Press in January 1995, and it was Bill Moyers, the award-winning journalist, and he traveled around the country looking for solutions on what to do on violence. And he lists how much the violence has jumped in the communities around the country. But at the back, there's a list of suggestions, and one of them is test children in school for dyslexia, attention deficit disorder, and other learning disabilities. Children who do poorly in school, who cannot keep up or feel frustrated and stigmatized, are more likely to act aggressively. So create alternatives for these students. And I want to thank, it was Ms. Jill Sharkey tonight, for pointing out that the zero tolerance doesn't work. That, when these children get into trouble and you send them to El Puente and you're introducing them to more gang members, you're even sending children to El Puente who are for more credits because they're failing in grades. And I thought El Puente was a probation school. So this really is not appropriate for a lot of these children. I would like to, and again, show it you. I've given you a brochure on a conference. Our office does, every year we bring in speakers from around the country, national and international speakers on learning disabilities and ADD. And on the 26th of this month, we have Dr. Daniel Amen, who is the adult and child psychiatrist. And Daniel Amen has the world's largest database on functional brain scans for people with ADD. And he's coming to the City College. We're having a conference. Dr. Amen's book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, is on the New York Best Times bestseller list, translated into 10 languages, sold over 150,000 copies worldwide. And Daniel Amen has published probably 19 books and 25 videos on this subject. And we would like you, one of them is Firestorms in the Brain. And if you're talking about gang violence or juvenile violence, I really recommend that every member of this board attend this conference. If you really want to curtail the violence in our county, you really need to come and listen to this man. He's well renowned for his work. We have people coming from Seattle, we have people coming from Long Beach, from San Diego, from all over the state and out of the state for this conference. And you've been given this opportunity to hear this man speak. And I really would like you to come. We have given scholarships out to your teachers and your principals if they want to. But I really think every member of this board should attend this conference if you want to really deal with the violence in our communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Laura Baker, followed by Alma Uribe.
Thank you. Good evening. My name's Laura Baker. I'm a teacher at La Cumbre Junior High School and have been there for 3 years now, or this is my 3rd year there. Prior to that, I was in the elementary district here as a teacher, a special ed teacher and a regular ed teacher for approximately 14 years. So I feel like I've got a bit of a long-term perspective on some of this. And I'll have to tell you, honestly, it was a bit of an eye-opening experience for me to come to the junior high, to the secondary level, regarding student violence or youth violence in general. I always heard about all of these things going on, never really understood the whole overall picture, not that I do now, but I have a little more insight now. And while I recognize the need for immediate action to stem what is happening right now, so we're talking about intervention at this point, and suppression, the other key issue here is prevention. And as we know, one of the key terms in education for years has been early intervention is the key. And I want to make sure that we don't forget that other important piece of this situation, which is that early intervention. And we have to address these things at the elementary level. And I think that the district particularly has an incredible opportunity in this role as part of the community when we look at, this has to be a community effort, obviously, and that's why we have so many different people here from throughout the community. But the district particularly needs to address this early intervention issue. And we can do this in the elementary schools. And one of the things is, you know, as a board, I've been involved with Character Counts program in the district and in our whole area here for years. Back in the summer of 2000, the Rotary Club and United Way got together to support some sort of character education program in the area. And Adams School, with Joanne Keynes and the staff, piloted the Character Counts program. And when we took that on and decided as a staff to make this a school-wide program and really embraced the character education program, it made a difference. And it took us a couple of years. I mean, it's been a process. We watched it happen over 2 or 3 years period of time where the kids started to internalize some of this. And hands down, if you ask any one of the local youth organizations that come in to do presentations at elementary schools, they would say to you, Adams School kids during these performances are so incredibly calm and put together compared to some of the other schools. And that's not to diss any of the other schools, it's to say that it works and it does start to become internalized. So I want to make sure that when we're looking at this, we have this concurrent situation going on over here talking about prevention also. And I think the worry that I have is because it's so in the forefront of the community to talk about what's going on right now with the gangs and the violence that we've had recently, and we do have to address that. I want to make sure that we have some sort of a task force or something going on over at in the side area that talks about early intervention. And a key part of that, I'm sorry, I just saw the time, key part of that is to communicate from the elementary to the secondary. And that articulation between those two separate groups is, Dr. Noel purposely put it earlier, the disparate groups and disparate backgrounds and thoughts on these issues is going to be really important that we look at those. And it's not so disparate when you do look at elementary to secondary as we might think. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. It's Alma Uribe, followed by Graciela Fernandez.
Voy a hablar en español. Mi razón por la que estoy aquí es porque quiero dar gracias. Tengo un hijo en César Chávez y sobre esa escuela yo he recibido mucha ayuda.
Ella está aquí porque ella antes que nada quiere dar gracias. I'm sorry. I'm so used to the Spanish back then. She's here because she wants to give thanks. She has a child in Cesar Chavez.
Y sobre la escuela César Chávez he recibido y he escuchado de todas las ayudas que les dan a los padres, a los padres que están separados de papás.
Okay, she heard from Cesar Chavez about all the parents that have received help when they're single parents.
Y quiero dar gracias también a Padres Adelante.
She wants to give thanks to Padres Adelante, which is Parents Forward.
Nos dan mucha comunicación en cómo ayudar a nuestros hijos a seguir adelante para
And they help them to
alejarlos,
help their children,
para alejarlos de las gangas.
to keep them away from gangs. Pandillas.
Sí.
Ajá.
Y también quiero decir que estoy de acuerdo con todos los personas que han hablado acerca de la comunicación entre los hijos, la escuela y los papás.
She agrees with all the people who came and present, talking about the importance of communication. La importancia de la comunicación
Con los padres
with
en la
parents
escuela.
and schools.
Necesitamos contribuir más con
We
las
need to
escuelas,
contribute more with the schools as a parents,
nuestros hijos y
or
padres de
or
familia.
children and parents.
Es todo lo que tenía que decir. Gracias.
Gracias.
It's Graciela Fernandez, followed by Lane Wheeler.
Thank you. Good night. I'm actually the parent coordinator for the program Padres Adelante at Cesar Chavez, and I'm also very excited and very thankful that you're addressing this issue. And I think some of the models that they've spoken about in terms of intervention are very important. And I just want to echo the other comments about prevention and on how we need to work on our asset base on our community. Many times when we talk about perhaps gang violence or youth violence, we're often talking about Latino community. And the program that I coordinate at Cesar Chavez focuses on gearing, talking with the families and contributing to that, creating a community of higher education. And so what we do is we not only familiarize the parents with the educational system, but we also provide them resources as to where to go whenever they do encounter these challenges. And we're at the elementary level, and we actually have a lot of success at this school, but I think there's also a need to have the same models at other schools, especially middle schools, because that's where we lose a lot of our students. And so just want to echo that. All of these intervention programs are very important, but let's also focus on prevention and focus on our parents and see them as partners, I think is also important. What I tell the parents that I work with often is that, we're not here to educate you, we're here to learn together, and we bring speakers. I know Robin's going to be our guest speaker for this next Thursday, and so I just want to say that if we focus on these programs and really see each other as partners, I think all of our efforts that we're talking about here will be much more successful. Thank you.
Is that a guest speaker in La Lengua?
Yeah.
Is that right?
And
This will be good.
as she's finishing up and before Mr. Wheeler comes up, can I just ask how many of our elementary schools have Padres Adelantes?
Actually, at this point, the one at Cesar Chavez has 2 or 3 parents from Franklin, I believe, that attend.
Correct.
You can probably answer more.
Yeah.
Correct. It started at Ella Vista Elementary, and then we lost our coordinator. But we are only at Cesar Chavez now.
Okay.
Luckily, this year we've returned to IV. It's all for the need of coordinators.
Okay.
And the program is sponsored through the Office of Academic Preparation, and we also have support from the Fund for Santa Barbara. And so currently, we're only at Cesar Chavez, and
Okay.
we just started at IV.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
I want to add too, though, the parents at Cesar Chavez. I was there visiting today, and talking to the principal, Eva Nair. She said that the parents that have been participants and active for the last few years want to help other parents at other schools, and they are so skilled now in what they're doing and know the curriculum and how to do it that they could be most supportive and to build it. So that's something we talked about today to expand.
And that was a strong component at Goleta Valley as well.
All right, Mr. Lane Wheeler from the SBTA.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to start by thanking the board members for holding this forum and the two assistant superintendents for the work that they've done so far. I feel fortunate to speak for the teachers. I think we have a wonderful team in place. The administrators I see here today are always willing to collaborate with teachers. I think the common theme that you've heard today, though, is how important the educator is in this process, and that they are really our first responders, the people who are going to be the eyes and ears on the ground, and will be the connecting element that's going to bring our students, keep them in that safe haven that our schools are today. And I would like to commend you to keep our teachers at that forefront and to do what you can to give them the tools and the assets they need to be able to do that important work. I often told the parents in my class that it was important for our kids to learn to read and write and do math, but to learn to be good citizens was also an essential part of that education. And that, in the day of No Child Left Behind, we oftentimes, I think, put that aside. We need to keep that at the forefront, and we have the resources at our hands. I think it's a matter of working together and as a collaborative team to bring that effort to its full fruition. And I'd like to see teachers be able to do that important work in respect to the other jobs that they have. It's really a multitasking effort that they do every day, and it happens from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night between our child development programs and the coaches we have out there on the ground, between our special ed staff and those teachers that are doing the after-school tutorials and programs. So it's a great resource we have, and we have to keep that there. We need to be asking those teachers how we can involve them and using those resources. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to now go to principals, unless there wasn't any, that was it. To principals, if anyone would like to, anyone have anything to add or like to share? Do I hear it? I see a whole bunch of really good principals here.
Dreading coming up to the mic.
I knew it. Rather briefly, I guess we're a little behind, although we're skipping the next item, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
Craig Morgan, Principal, San Marcos High School, 30 seconds. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you for your willingness to step forward and address this issue. I took this to our PAC, to our ELAC, to our ASB, and every other group we had on campus. The three things that San Marcos would like to request is video surveillance, gang task force person to help coordinate and counsel our kids, and added ears and eyes on our campus with just an extra security person. It's real simple. We had a camera surveillance system on our campus for about a year. It reduced graffiti and this stuff in our bathrooms that was taking place. We had the biggest drug bust on our campus in the history of the school take place from information we got from this camera. So thank you very much for the opportunity. That's San Marcos High School. Go Royals!
Now everybody else is going to want to come up and say that. Anything else? Anyone else want to add anything? Thank you. Junior high principal.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Veronica Rogers, Principal, Goleta Valley Junior High. And I think the big word I heard out here was connectedness and communication, and parents are partners and working all together with all the entities. And one of our big cohorts that I'd like to just share is working with Isla Vista School. We've had a group of students that through Enlace that started at the early elementary, then they have come through Goleta Valley, and actually that first cohort is going to graduate from Dos Pueblos this year. And it is that communication and the involvement of everyone being a team with that, and also making sure everyone's connected, students, parents, teachers, your staff, and collaborating. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to come out there and twist some arms.
Thank you. As I listened, something that Matt Sanchez said struck me, and that is that this is really a youth issue. When he said that, I I kind of thought about my campus and that the things that are happening on our campus are not, the majority of things, violations of ed code, for example, are from students, not gang members, not gang affiliated. I mean, it does happen with those kids, but it's a youth issue. And I wanted to reiterate that, but I think in doing so, it leads me to another point, which is the large majority of our kids on campus want to have a great school. They want to learn. And I think when we talk about tip line, this is our best resource. And so I'm a firm believer in really solid, firm expectations on behavior and holding to that. But I'm also a firm believer in connecting with those kids on a level where we get to know them so well that they're so comfortable that they would come forward and give us information to make our school great. And so whether it's a tip line, I mean, we have a Safe School Ambassador program that, I see kids coming in with information that we can act upon and then get kids hooked into the proper places. So I think our parents and our kids are our best resource with respect to keeping our schools safe, and it's a matter of communicating and connecting with those kids and parents in order to do that. So I wanted to add that as well.
Thank you so much. Of course.
I haven't even said anything yet. Come on. You ever put the clock out? Just a couple of quick stories. Because I taught up at the boys' camp for 12 years. And this young man said, "Hey, Ortiz," when I was looking at this paper at big screens, he said, "Get me out of here. I'll have a big screen at your house at 6 o'clock tonight." And it dawned on me, these kids and the others have the capacity. They have skill and they have the will. And I implore everybody here in our community to give them the opportunity, the access. If you give them the shot, they can do it. They can do it. My other story is about my 6th grade teacher at McKinley School, Pat Cox. This is the other thing I want people to think about. I was not a gang member, but I was headed down a different pathway, and she accepted me. And one of the things that we work on with our staff is to accept each child, to take their welfare personally. And so I'd like to continue to implement programs that take the welfare of each child personally and to accept them as them. And again, remember, each child has the capacity to succeed if given the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Our fourth junior.
Yes, the fourth junior high principal, Joanne Keynes from La Cumbre Junior High. I want to thank Mr. Ortiz for his 6th grade story. I'd like to tell a recent story. It's a story that happened this morning when a young lady walked into the La Cumbre office at the bell, and she just kind of stood there. And the secretary looked at her and knew that something wasn't right because we know her. It turns out it was her brother who was stabbed last night. But she knew to come to a safe place, and she knew to come to school. And that says the kinds of schools that we want, where children can be safe, where they can trust people. A lot of great discussion has happened tonight, and now we sort of need to bring it all together with Dr. Furlong looking at the research. There are a lot of programs that are going on, great programs from CADA, from our own staff, and we need to know what we're doing and come up with a real plan that reaches down into elementary, that really is sort of a K or a pre-K 12 program. So I'm encouraged that doesn't look like action will take place tonight, because clearly we need to look back at the research, what's out there, what's working, what our own population needs, and where we're going. So I'm very encouraged. I've worked 20 years on the West Side. This is a community I know well, And it makes me feel good on a daily basis when parents come to me for help with anything, even though their students may not attend La Cumbra or their former Adams parents, but there's a connection because I've been there for 20 years. So I'm really encouraged, and I thank everybody who came to speak. We have a dedicated group of administrators, both here at the district, at the sites, an incredible group of teachers that really work to connect with students. Our counselors, and especially now with the 1802 reducing the caseload for counselors has really made a difference. I think we're on the right path, and I think taking a slow approach, a slow, fast approach, because this is a problem that we need to move forward with, I think we're on the right road. Thank you.
Thank you. Up, one more.
No, I can speak faster than Dave. I'm Mark Caprito. I'm the principal at Santa Barbara High School, and I'm new to the district, but I need to share a couple of things. You have the right people here. I know I'm dating myself, but I think it was when Mike had mentioned Richard Morrison from Ventura Unified. I can remember a meeting, I think, with Mike probably what feels like a long time ago now, to write some of the first safe school plans. And what I want to share is two real key points. One is you have the right people here. There's no question about it. We need to listen. And two, there's going to be a lot of mixed emotions about things. I've been 7 years looking at district cameras in schools, and the last 7 years in Las Virgenes. Amazing that we still haven't got them up. I mean, they're there, but they, how well are they working? What do they do? What purpose do they serve? What are we trying to achieve in the end? Fences, there'll be mixed emotions about fences and mixed emotions about adding more people, all of which have to be investigated and looked into. One of the things that I did, and I would share with you, is that the key words are here too. Everybody's mentioned them, the word connectiveness, and it was told, I've heard both sides of the story, no, I don't see it in schools. We do see it in schools. We see it every day in schools. Kids are being more and more connected. Is everybody connected? No. Can we do a better job? Always, but we need the tools. Communication, I think everybody is striving for that. We do that every day. We try hard to meet with our kids, to meet with our students. And there are some real special days. You hear the stories where the kids come up and talk to us and say, we really need to speak with you. But those issues are going to be addressed, but it's going to take some time. And there isn't a one-size-fits-all program. There's no such thing as a canned program for this problem. And I would like to address last what we do right that we need to revisit. And I think that's why we have safe school plans, much like we have WASC. It's an opportunity for us to look at ourselves inside, to find out what we're doing, to find out what we can do better. And it's not supposed to be a gotcha type of thing. It's supposed to be an awareness. It's supposed to give us an opportunity to improve. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I thought I might have to tackle some of those junior high principals before I could get up here. Every time I started to make a move, they were jumping up ahead of me. Mark Swanes, Dos Pueblos High School. And what I came up to say, is to reiterate some of what my colleagues have said, is that, this is a large problem and it needs a multifaceted approach. But having looked at some of the proposals and listened to some of the discussion tonight, I think it's very, very evident that this is a people problem that needs to be solved by people. And there's been some talk about things like fences and cameras. I will disagree with some of my colleagues on some of those things. And I would encourage the board to take a long, hard look at whether we want to take what we already know are our scarce resources and put them towards inanimate objects as opposed to people. I think people need to solve people problems, and things like fences are great. They're there, but they serve one of two purposes. They either keep things in or they keep things out. And if you're going to keep things in, you have to lock them and you have to create a prison environment. If you're going to keep things out, you have to man them so that there's somebody there to let the people in who have business with the school. So you've added a people problem or a people issue to an object problem. Same thing with cameras. If you have cameras on a school site, they're a useful resource if you have the manpower to watch them and monitor them. Otherwise, they become an after-the-fact, artifact, documentation of something that happened. And having worked in schools that had cameras, I can tell you that I was not impressed with the way that they were utilized. The one thing I can say that cameras do as an inanimate object is to create some safe zones. They may not help us prevent things unless we can put a person whose job is to sit there and watch those cameras. But if the kids know where the cameras are, they go to those areas to protect themselves if they're concerned about something happening, because they know at the very least there's going to be a documentation of some event. So cameras have some resource in that regard, but again, the real resource of a camera system would be if someone's watching it and can monitor an entire, 40-acre campus from one room, as opposed to what we have with 3 or 4 campus security officers cruising around in their individual areas. So just encourage you to take a long, hard look. I know resources are scarce, and we need to take our few dollars and spend them in the most appropriate ways. And it's my personal belief and the beliefs of the teachers and the community members and the students that I've talked to that our dollars are much better spent on people as opposed to things. Thanks.
Thank you. Last, on, on elementary principal.
We were going to have all 10 elementary principals come up here and speak to you, but they sent me instead. It's easy for elementary principals. I'll speak for myself. I can say, gee, I'm off the hook. That doesn't happen in elementary schools. So it's a junior high, high school problem. But it's not true. It's just simply not true. Our children oftentimes live in circumstances that are deplorable, that are dangerous for them. The examples that they see, they internalize, and they think that those are the only alternatives that they have. We have an opportunity at the elementary schools to take concrete steps to connect with these children and show them that there are other ways, that they do have the capacity to really be the person that they were born to be, and not what somebody else says they have to be. So I would encourage us to keep focused on elementary schools. We're prepared. We have great resources. We have parents who are in our schools all the time. And we need to listen to our parents and find out what they want to do, what they think is best for their children. We have programs already on our sites that we could use to mobilize parents and to support them in this task of raising their children. Those programs are already there. We don't have to create anything at the elementary school level. The contact that we have between teachers and children in elementary school is unique in our system. They're close. Our teachers know our children. They interact with their parents. They're supports to them. Teachers are a huge resource in finding ways to prevent these things from happening, these tragedies from happening to our children. When I act like it couldn't happen here, one of my children from my school is involved in a horrible thing that affects him and was involved with the death of a child here in our community. It starts in the elementary schools. Lastly, I would encourage you to consider structural matters. The kind of connection that we have in elementary schools can be achieved with close communication between elementary and the secondary level, but there are other systems out there that provide that continuity from kindergarten through much higher grades, in which children stay together for longer periods of time, in which the continuity of relationships can be maintained. And I would suggest that, as many people have tonight, that those relationships are going to make the big difference. Finally, people like Matt Sanchez and others, we've got a lot of people in this community who want to be in schools and help. They don't want to be in the way of the core curriculum, but the core curriculum really is about nurturing our children and having them become healthy, loving individuals. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Ms. Fernandez from Cesar Chavez said, we are all here to learn together, and I feel like that certainly has happened tonight. And this is my favorite group here. We've got all these community activists. We've got these dedicated administrators. This is ideal. So, given that, you had your hand up first, I guess, Dr. Noel.
Yes, I'd like to really thank everybody who came. And I've been keeping a little running tally here. I count at least 14, 15 different groups, organized groups, categories of personnel, administrators, teachers and more teachers, after listening to Mike, and I view this as a resource list. Everybody that we've heard brings something to the issue that we need to hear, and I'm just wondering, and I hear a lot of ad hoc suggestions, and I've got my own list. I read a very interesting article on safe passage, it was called, referring to safe passage to school. And I think of Eva Inbar's work, and I think, well, maybe we can build on that. And I would check with Mike Furlong, but I read at least one reference in a research study that the biggest fear is going and coming from school, less so than on campus. Well, that's something that we need to address, but not ad hoc. And what I would like to suggest for consideration is that what's missing is a conceptualization of the problem. And I don't know anybody who conceptualizes problems better than professors. That's what they get paid to do. And I'm wondering if maybe we ought to be thinking about trying to persuade Professor Furlong and his colleagues into conceptualizing this problem for us, showing us how everything fits together so that we create, and the result would be a process, an ongoing process. And another thing, as I've just dabbled in looking at some of this research, I come away with a couple of major impressions. One is it must be a coordinated problem, all elements in the community. That seems to be unanimous in everything I can find. And the other one, I don't see it so much in the research, but I hear it from the practitioners, and I wish Frank Benalis would be able to come, is it has to be sustained. And the dilemma about sustaining such a program, is that as it succeeds, the pressure gets less and the money goes away. And so you have to commit to something long-term, knowing that the sense of urgency is going to decline, and that will be a measure of success because the numbers go down. And that's happened in this community. And Bob Atunde was one of the leaders who helped bring down numbers that were very bad in the 90s. And lo and behold, funding dried up and these programs went away. And here we are now in 10 years later, looking at an upsurge. So we have to take a long view, and it has to be a coordinated view. And I would argue, and this is probably, well, this is just my disciplinary background, okay? Not in the field of education. But in this array, this full spectrum array of things you do, multi-level activities that address this problem, including very soft things, deterrence has a role. And I found some very interesting literature on that. I think that it cannot be neglected, and that's what brought me into it. I read the Healthy Kids Survey data, and I took the percentages, which are really little, but then I took the N, and I multiplied, and wait a minute, we're talking about, well, here, in Dr. Hayden's latest stuff, we have it broken down by the students who mostly answered the questions honestly, or all the questions honestly, okay? And still, if you multiply the percentages for the district, you got 174 people who said that one time they had carried a gun on campus, and 276 who said 2 to 3 times plus, or adding that to the group that said 4 or more times. So I call Jerry Bailey at West Ed, and he explains the methodology, and he says, there's a 2% error factor. They throw out the really questionable data, and you apply 2%. That's 69 students. So you're talking about 174 plus or minus 69. The error can go either way, right? Or 276 students plus or minus 69. District-wide, not every day. It means that they said that on an occasion, they did this. I can't ignore these data, and especially because I'm not looking at this as science now. This is policy. I don't care whether these are a representative sample of the whole student population. These are numbers. These are instances, and they're enough to motivate me to want us to see this process start and see it come to some kind of conclusion as soon as possible, but it must be inclusive. And thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you. Ms. Harder.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Noel that we are embarking on a process, but I think that we need to be putting in motion certain activities. We can't conduct a process, have it conclude, and then draw some conclusions and make some actions to implement. I think we need to get certain things moving in parallel. And so I guess I would like, in the interest of moving forward some of the recommendations, I would like to have an agenda item on a soon, a very, an agenda in the short term to consider the job description for the gang intervention specialist. And maybe that's not the best title for it, but to consider that job description, and then to also hear about where potential monies might be coming from to fund any of these positions and any of these other recommendations. So that's one step. Dr. Sarvis indicated that they were already investigating the tip line, so I guess I'd like more feedback about that. And I'm sure other board members have other ideas that they would like to pursue as part of a follow-up to this meeting, and also to initiate the survey process, the district survey. And then just some unfinished business for me has to do with issue number 18, the broken windows theory that we had discussed at previous board meetings. And it mentions physical things, school buildings not being tagged, windows not being broken. But there are human factors involved in that too that I think that we need to be paying close attention to. Are there lots of kids hanging around in between classes, during class in the hallways when they really should be in class? Are kids leaving campus between periods? Are they leaving at lunch and not coming back? Should we be talking about what we do at lunchtime, particularly with our 9th graders? I think the data demonstrates that that's a difficult transition for a lot of kids from 8th grade to 9th grade, and there are some, albeit small, but significant spikes in, aberrant behaviors, for lack of a better word, that take place to a higher degree with 9th graders than with other grade levels. So I guess I'd like to be looking at those kinds of things. I'm sure each individual school has their own solutions. I'm not talking about imposing solutions, but I guess I'd like a report back on those kinds of things. If individual schools are thinking about certain kinds of initiatives, like San Marcos, for instance, had their closed campus initiative a few years ago. So I guess I'd like that kind of feedback that generally sort of falls under the heading of, broken windows theory.
Yeah, would you extend it to in the classroom?
Absolutely.
Disrespect and
absolutely.
signs of social disorder in the classroom?
I think I hit on the other big points. Oh, the really big discussion that we also need to be having is after-school programs. And I know that we have a lot of partners out in the community who would like to be part of that conversation, who may have resources, ideas, et cetera, to put forward in this. I had a conversation with someone today from a community organization that's very interested in participating in that kind of discussion and perhaps trying to put some resources into it. But I think that we need to be having that very specific conversation and inviting representatives from community organizations that engage in after-school activities for students.
I just want to remind that in 2 weeks, we have our joint meeting with the City Council.
Correct. I'm talking about YMCA,
Yeah.
Boys and Girls
Oh,
Clubs,
yeah,
all those kinds of organizations.
It's actually, it's
February 29th. It's at the end of February. That extra day that wouldn't exist otherwise.
Well, I don't want to repeat things that have already been said. I'm actually very appreciative of the people who came to this meeting tonight. This is one of the best meetings that we've had in a long time, because we've actually gotten to focus on some issues where I think we have a lot of common ground, where we're all working together to try to figure out the response to a problem and an issue that we agree in a great deal, or to a great extent, we agree on what the problem is, and we agree on sort of where we would like to end up. Several people have commented that we probably will disagree at some points on the steps on how to get where we would all like to end up. But that's sort of the nature of the beast. I think that's okay. I would love to see the kind of report that Mrs. Harder just suggested, and I would love to see that come back to another meeting like this, where we have a lot of community input. There are some people who are, I think, missing from tonight's meeting. There are some people that should be here that haven't been here. I would have loved to have heard from some young people on what they feel about these issues. We often have this kind of a phenomenon where we're discussing how to deal with problems that affect youth, and we don't actually talk to the youth that we would be affecting. So I want to thank Matt Sanchez for bringing someone who has actually gone through this program, and certainly closer to being to that youthful age than many of us are. But I would love to have heard from even more of that constituency. So I think if we do bring back this report, it would be really nice to maybe do even more outreach, because we were able to get, I think, a wonderful cross-section here tonight, and we can even bring more. But I just want to thank all of you for being here. You've given us so much to think about and so much information that was incredibly helpful. And I think it's been something that has helped not just the board, but everybody think about the issues more fully, more deeply, and from many more perspectives. So thank you.
Well said.
I want to agree with everything that Mrs. Cordero said, and also with Mrs. Harder. When you're talking about a report, however, I hope that we're taking some action along the way, and then maybe we can come back together again, because it's actually kind of hard to act on one piece of it when you've been given a huge list. So I hope that we're moving forward on the list that she proposed before we all perhaps meet together again. I wanted to move to the real specific here, and that is that the district, as you said, Dr. Sarvis, one of the first things you did was eliminate all minimum days that weren't mandated by state law. We do have a minimum day mandated by state law that is coming up this Friday. And so I would like to hear what the district is doing in terms of coordinating with the community in a very specific case here for what's happening for this Friday.
Good. May I get the notes, Barbara? Because we're sending a press release out on it as we speak. First thing we did was to work with law enforcement, and law enforcement says, like Fiesta, this is something that they will be geared up for and be ready for, so that we have presence in schools, around schools, and on the street. But we will also have our own people present on the streets. We'll be doing a number of things to work with parents in advance. Just some specifics here. Notices in student bulletin this week to encourage students to go directly home Friday unless they're scheduled to participate in authorized after-school activities. Many schools have specific activities planned to keep kids occupied. For example, La Cumbre Junior High has planned high-interest activities until 6 p.m., and the day will culminate with a barbecue for students. My hat's off to La Cumbre Junior High. Santa Barbara Junior High has a parent-student lunch scheduled for Friday, and the expectation is that parents will leave with their students at 1 p.m. when school ends. All school supervision on campus, well, This also includes all school supervision on campus and reminders that some site administrators will be walking the downtown area and that the area will be monitored and rules for behavior will be strictly enforced. Classroom discussions to encourage students to make positive choices. Meetings and reminders provided to faculty, PTAs, site councils, English language advisory committees, and other parent groups. Using the school telephone call-out system, remind all parents in English and in Spanish of the upcoming minimum day and encouraging parents to talk to their children about going straight home after school and having planned supervised activities for their child on that day, informal discussions with students known to be affiliated with gangs, and making positive choices that day. I think the most reassuring part of this is our work with law enforcement and their statements that they're just planning for it, they're planning to gear up for it, and they're ready. Let's see, there's some other things on here, but that's a brief rundown.
Just a quick related question to that.
Yes.
I don't understand why local districts don't have more flexibility over, these legally required minimum days. And I'm wondering if it's worth a call to the State Department of Education or Jack O'Connell's office to see whether or not we can be afforded any kind of flexibility in light of the tremendous cost to the community.
Mm-hmm.
It costs to put more police on the street for an afternoon.
That's right.
There's a price being exacted on our campuses, albeit turned into a happy kind of event, a very positive spin on an event. But I'm not sure why we need to be forced to have minimum days.
I asked that same, the purpose for a state mandated minimum day is so that grades can be prepared at the end of the semester.
No, I understand,
Yes.
but if we do, late start or that sort of thing, what I'm talking about is some flexibility.
Some flexibility.
Right.
And, well, I asked that same question, and the answer I received was that this was the requirement.
Anything else? You're done. Okay. Did you have any last things to say?
If I wanted to respond to Mrs. Harder, because I thought maybe you were going to speak.
No, I'm trying to get the meeting done.
Mrs. Harder has asked that we have on the action agenda the proposal to spend basically $250,000 on these intervention specialists.
No, I don't think that's what I asked. I asked to examine the job description and to examine where potential funding would come from.
Okay. Yeah, you did say that. I go the next step and say, yeah, and this is going to get momentum, and we're going to be looking at an action agenda that will ask us to act on this. I think that would be very premature. If anything came out of this meeting is that we haven't begun, and with all deference to Mr. Gonzalez, who did an excellent job, we have not begun to tap the resources in this community, and ultimately it must be a community effort. So on whatever agenda that is, I would like to see some other items on it. I would like to see, for example, I'd like to see one item that would look at alternative ways of spending the $250,000, including asking for developing requests for proposals to the groups that we have right here in our own community. Many of them already have programs that are wanting funds, and we should invite that. And the second one would be on the agenda to look at organizing a task force, a broad-based community school task force that will develop a plan for what I would view a more rational approach to spending our resources, our money. So I'd like to have two items on the same agenda.
Well, we have done the latter. In fact, I reported to you at the beginning of tonight's.
But how can you have a plan that doesn't involve the community?
Let me continue. I started the presentation by saying that we partnered with the city, and we're launching that process for a joint community effort and solution in this, because it involves bringing all the resources of the community together. But let me ask about the first part of your proposal. Are you suggesting that the district should put $250,000 on the table?
I'm suggesting that it's premature to spend it on 5 intervention specialists when there are many options that have yet to emerge in a rational search for alternatives. And I hate to see any process that moves that along outside of the context of a broader review of alternatives. It's very ad hoc, and it doesn't. I know Michael looked at research, but he didn't look at all the research.
I'm asking to have that one option fleshed out, but also with regard to funding, we don't have unrestricted general fund to put to that. It's going to require grant funding. And I want to see what grant funding is available, because the grant funding may very well dictate the direction that we have to go in. That's the kind of information that I want to gather. Okay.
Well, we have, in fact, I'll let Michael speak. We have a number of items that we're following up on. We have a number of things we need to get you in the board brief. We have a number of reports that in our follow-up meetings and discussions, we'll be bringing updates back to you on some of the very issues that you've talked about. We will bring the gang prevention specialist job description back. I mean, we do believe that if we want to affect gang violence, that we need to work directly with kids. I mean, there are a lot of other issues about getting kids engaged and issues that affect their health. But we think we need to have people who work directly with them.
One of the reasons I'm questioning this, and I want to get this on the table, is that I've been making a lot of phone calls and talking to a lot of people about this proposal and about this problem. And I have heard conflicting views about the history that underlies this proposal, that we had a position once. And I've heard on one side, I've heard the view that it worked very well. On the other side, I've heard the view that it was poison. And these are by people who've been around, have long memories. That one of the things it did, according to some people, was tend to radicalize kids. And then talk to another person who thinks it worked well and says, yes, but that was how you reach those kids. Now, I'd like to hear more about that. I don't know where I am on that. I hear both sides of that argument. Then one of the strongest defenders of that program says it worked beautifully, but it was a unique individual who had deep roots in the community. Now, before I start talking about 5 FTE devoted, I want to know how we're going to recruit. I mean, these people, if it's somebody who walks on water, they're hard to find.
Well, I believe you also heard the very same thing from Michael Gonzalez. It all depends on who you have acting in this role.
Absolutely, but
Yes.
that is why I am very reticent to see us, and I know how things work around here. We start to think these things all of a sudden come back for a vote, and I think I would like to see us extend that process before we. That's a lot of money, and I don't care where it comes from. That's a lot of money.
Well, we won't be moving ahead without your further discussion.
Matter of fact, we'd like to, I think we all want to be in this discussion, and we have reservations as well. And I think
That is
we have,
great to hear.
we need to wait till another meeting to do that.
That is great to hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, can I, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you.
would like to tie
I would like to make my closing comment. First of all, staff needs direction from the board, period. However, there's also the reality of funding. We began a process to secure a Safe School Violence grant. We were successful in being given a green light to proceed. We received word on December 28th. However, the grant application is due on February 22nd. And so there is urgency if we want to apply for that particular grant. It represents, at the present time, the proposal is to write a grant for $500,000 specific to the junior highs and $500,000 specific to the high schools. The application that we submitted does not have any kind of priorities or spending plan or goals. It simply was a process to verify to the state and the Attorney General's office that indeed we have safe school plans. So we've been given a green light. But my point that I want to raise is that we are under a time crunch of February 22nd. You can instruct, the superintendent can instruct us to not proceed any further with that grant. But I simply want to share with you that it is an opportunity to secure $1 million worth of funding for a number of years.
I thought it was 500 on that program.
It's 500,000, but we would be applying for one grant for the junior highs and one grant for the high schools. Okay.
And how long does that money last? Is it a multi-year program?
It's given the state of the budget, I will share with you that the data right now, the plan right now is to support these endeavors for 5 years. But again, as you know, a grant is a very complicated process. We don't really have much more time if we want to meet that February 22nd deadline.
Well, we'd like your direction to move ahead.
I would like to suggest that whether it's 500,000 or $1 million, even if it were 250,000, which is the number we've been throwing around for the additional staff person, I would think it would be a shame for us to miss a deadline because we want to, dawdle over some numbers. That's money that I don't think our students can afford for us to miss out on.
I just want to clarify a bit more. And please, if I misspeak, superintendents, please let me know. The current commitment, as our Fighting Back partners have shared with you, the funding for the YSSs will soon terminate. We have a commitment right now to support some of the YSSs currently on campus. We would like to see if they are able to provide the kind of parenting program that we've been talking about here to reduce violence. Right now, the plan would be that about half the funds might go to support our partnership with them. The other half would be to meet district needs. Now, the thing is that what are the mechanisms that we agree to meet this youth violence is the issue. And again, to meet that February 22nd deadline, we would have to make decisions about what priorities we will choose to fund almost immediately. All right.
Now, in that,
Thank you.
in that application, in the pre-application, how far did you go in terms of describing the program?
None. It was not required. Again, what we had to
So it's
prove
blank. That's a clean slate.
Exactly, it's a clean slate. We simply had to prove that our schools have produced safe school documents that meet the requirements of the education code.
I thought we needed community partners in that grant program.
For the submission of the grant, we need lots of partners and law enforcement. We have made overtures to law enforcement, probation, and they have given their blessing to the grant. What we don't have are specific ideas that we choose to fund in the grant application.
This is kind of late in the evening for us to make a decision about this, although it sounds like something we need to do soon. I'm an hour over time that I said we'd end this meeting even, so it was all interesting and we needed the information. I'm not sure right now is the time. So I'm going to have to put, when can we do this?
I want to put you on the spot, Madam President.
Yeah,
then,
when?
Then could you say when?
It's going to have to be.
If this isn't the time, when?
It's not her decision. I mean, we all are part of that.
Thank you.
I'm not saying that as I'm not trying to cut you off, Madam Chair. I just didn't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I just don't know how we can make a decision at this late date.
I agree.
Talking about making a decision, it's a workshop. We can't make decisions.
So I agree with you, and I would move that we adjourn the meeting.
Well, let me just step in. We have
That
a
takes
board
precedent,
meeting next
right?
Tuesday night. We can put this item on the agenda for action next Tuesday night.
Well, I wonder if by next Tuesday night, Mr. Gonzalez and
A motion to adjourn, Madam President, must be voted on immediately. Is there
Do I hear a second?
Is there a second?
will you withdraw the motion?
I'll withdraw the motion.
Thank you.
That's what I thought she was.
My question for Mr. Gonzalez is, by next Tuesday evening, would you and the grant writer have an outline of what the grant proposal would look like so that we can deal with it as a conference item, not an action item?
The answer is yes. We could bring you a proposal. I'm just simply sharing with you that the more direction you give staff, the better the proposal that we present you will be. Right?
Because when would you actually need us to take action, like approving that you're putting stuff forward? Not
I
until
support
later?
the superintendent's thinking in that the next board meeting should be a decision if we want to continue the process of applying for that school violence community grant.
How long ago did they invite us to apply?
December 28th.
The state in its wisdom almost always does things in the following manner. We received notification of this, I believe it was 4 days before the winter break.
For notification that our application to submit had been accepted?
No, we received notification that our application had been submitted, had been accepted on December 28th.
That's it. Adjourned.
No, we still have one, we have an action item on.
It was deferred.
Oh, okay, thank you.
We're